Welcome to Hey Ivan, a channel where people ask tech questions. Today's question is, what is an SVG and how is it different from other graphics files? I like this question because it tells us that an SVG is a graphics file and that there are other kinds of graphics files out there too. In fact, there are a ton of them in the world, and while you may not be a graphic designer, you're probably at least a little familiar with the most popular of them: GIF, JPEG, and PNG. GIF is pronounced as either GIF or GIF. For many years, there's been a raging debate on the proper way to pronounce it, and I'm not going to get into any of that, but I have included a couple of links in this video's description so that you can read up on the difference between GIF versus GIF if you like. GIF stands for Graphics Interchange Format, and it was developed back in 1987. This image format supports up to 256 colors, and each image can refer to its own color palette. It uses a form of lossless data compression to reduce file size without degrading an image's quality, and it supports both transparency and animation. JPEG is an image format named after the organization that created the standard back in 1992, the Joint Photographic Experts Group. The format supports up to 16 million colors and has been the most popular kind of image on the internet for years. While it doesn't support transparency, when you create a JPEG, you can adjust the level of compression to be used, which balances image quality against file size. The higher the compression, the more artifacts you'll see in the resulting image, and at the same time, the smaller your resulting file will be. These artifacts will be most visible in images with line drawings or with text-based elements, as well as in areas that contain sharp contrasts. The PNG, Portable Network Graphic, the PNG standard was developed in 1994 and released in 1996 as a patent-free alternative to GIF. It supports 16 million colors like JPEG, and like GIF, it supports lossless data compression and transparency. So what is SVG? SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics, which is a vector image format that can support interactivity and animation like GIF. It is an open standard developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, since 1999. How is it different from the other three formats we've discussed? Well, GIF, PNG, and JPEG are bitmap graphics or raster graphics, which means that the images are composed of a grid of rectangular dots called pixels. When you create an image in these formats, you commit to the number of pixels in the image at the outset. Most of us refer to the number of pixels in an image as its resolution. We may refer to the dimensions of the image as measured in the number of horizontal pixels by vertical pixels, or by the total number of pixels in an image. For example, you might say an image is an 8 megapixel image, meaning that the image contains around 8 million pixels. Or you might say that it has a resolution of 3264 by 2448, which is the number of pixels wide by the number of pixels tall. And while it's possible to make a bitmap graphic smaller without losing too much detail in the image, scaling them to be larger doesn't work so well. Let's take a look at my YouTube logo, which is saved as a JPEG image. It is 800 pixels wide by 800 pixels tall. And if I resize it to shrink it just to 50 by 50 pixels, you can see that when I zoom in, it looks like a grid of little squares. Now let's zoom back out to actual size and then resize the image so that it's 800 by 800 pixels again. Look at that. It's pretty clear that resizing bitmap or raster graphics changes the quality of the image you're editing, which can be problematic. SVG, on the other hand, is scalable. Rather than rely on pixels, SVG images rely on vectors, which are essentially drawings made from mathematical equations. You can define SVGs by hand using XML, an extensible markup language, or you can use apps that allow you to create and edit SVGs, similar to what Photoshop allows folks to do with bitmap images. And as you might imagine, there are apps and services that can help you convert a bitmap image into an SVG so that you can scale it up properly without losing any quality in the process. Let me show you. I downloaded an app called Inkscape, an SVG image editor, and opened my JPEG file in it. I was able to save a copy of my JPEG file as an SVG file. Inkscape analyzed my image and interpreted it as a vector drawing, which allowed me to tell it that I'd like to produce a new raster graphic at a higher resolution. Specifically, I said, "Hey Inkscape, can you please generate a new image for me that's 2000 pixels by 2000 pixels?" It did just that, and here's the result. The new image is just as clear as the original, because SVG is all vectors. It just produced a raster graphics file at this new resolution for me. Now I have a high-quality ping image that I can edit with a pixel-based image editor like Photoshop or Pixelmator. Or I could keep the image in the SVG format and use an SVG image editor to manipulate it directly. The people who need SVG files the most are those who work with images and designs that need to be produced in super high quality, like on billboards and in magazines, and those who need to change the scale of the designs they produce, such as folks who may work with various kinds of crafts to make things. Which apps support SVG? There are quite a few. The first ones I learned about long ago were Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign. Just a few moments ago, I told you about Inkscape, which is a free open source app available for GNU Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. I've included a link in this video's description to an article over at justinmind.com titled 20 Great Free and Paid SVG Editors for UX Designers. Start there, and I'm sure you'll find your way to other apps that do the same thing. If you found value in this video, click like. Did I miss anything? Leave a comment. Do you have a tech question? Just shout, "Hey Ivan," and let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.